still remember the sound of my phone buzzing that evening. It was not a loud sound, just a soft vibration on the wooden table. But that small sound changed something inside me forever. It was a quiet night, the kind of night where the world feels slow, soft, almost peaceful. Dinner was done, the dishes were washed, and my husband was in the living room watching a cricket match. I was wiping down the kitchen counter when I heard his phone buzz too. Normally, I never checked his messages. We trusted each other. Or at least, I thought we did. But that night, something felt different. Maybe it was the strange silence in the air. Maybe it was the way his face looked unusually serious. Maybe it was just my instincts whispering softly, "Look, just this once, look." He had left his phone on the dining table while going to the bathroom. The screen lit up. A notification appeared. And in that moment, my heart froze. It was from my best friend, Ria. My hands started trembling even before I read it. I felt my heartbeat in my ears, loud and heavy. The message said, "Today, I want to spend the whole night with you." I read it again and again, but the words stayed the same. For a moment, the whole kitchen went silent. The sound of the tap, the hum of the fridge, even the TV commentary in the living room, everything disappeared. It was just me and that one sentence. The girl who sent it, Ria, had been my closest friend for almost 10 years. We shared everything. Our secrets, our dreams, our worries, our late-night talks. She was the one who held my hand when I cried through heartbreaks. She was the one who laughed with me on small, silly things. She was the one who knew my husband from the time I started dating him. And she was the one I trusted the most. To see her name, to see her message, to see those words addressed to my husband, it felt like a stone being dropped into my heart. I did not shout. I did not gasp. I did not even cry. I just stood there, staring at the glowing screen, feeling something inside me slowly break. I closed my eyes. In that silence, one thought kept circling in my mind. Why? Why would she say something like this? Why would she betray me like this? And most importantly, why did my husband receive that message without looking surprised? Because he didn't delete her previous messages. They were right there. Dozens of them. Some innocent, some strange, some more bold than others. I didn't open them. I couldn't. It felt like touching fire with bare hands. My breath started to shake. My legs felt weak, but I placed his phone back exactly where it was. I didn't want him to know I saw anything. I felt too numb to react. Like someone had suddenly switched off the world around me, like my emotions froze mid-air. When he came out of the bathroom, he didn't notice anything. He didn't see the redness in my eyes. He didn't sense the heaviness in my voice. He simply picked up his phone, looked at the screen, and locked it without typing anything. That small action, that tiny, tiny moment told me more than any words could. He already knew what message was there. He didn't look shocked. He didn't look confused. He looked guilty. And guilt is a language you do not need to study. You just understand it. I forced a small smile and asked, "Match interesting?" He nodded casually. "Yeah, India might win today." I don't know why, but hearing him talk so normally made my heart ache even more. It felt like someone was pulling my chest apart slowly, gently, but painfully. I went back to the kitchen and held the edge of the sink. I felt tears rise, but I pressed my lips together. No, not yet.
I whispered to myself, "Stay calm, just breathe." And I did. A long, deep breath, then another. But calmness does not come easily when your heart is shaking. My mind kept replaying every moment from the past few years. The way Ria would sometimes laugh too loudly at my husband's jokes. The way she sometimes dressed up extra nicely when she knew we were meeting. The way she always asked about him more than necessary. But I never doubted her. Never. She was my friend, my closest friend. I wiped my face with the edge of my dupatta and stepped out of the kitchen. He was still watching TV. The room felt normal, too normal.
And that made everything feel even more unreal. I sat beside him quietly. I didn't know how to act. I didn't know what expression to put on my face. But he didn't even look at me. His eyes stayed glued to the screen. That hurt too. It was strange how a person you shared a home with, a person you shared meals with, a person you once believed loved you deeply, could sit next to you and yet feel so far away. I watched the match on the screen, but my mind was somewhere else. My thoughts were swirling like dust in an empty room, unsettled, confusing, lonely. I kept wondering, had something already happened between them? Was this the first message or the last of many? Was my marriage already broken and I just didn't see it? I touched my wedding ring gently. It felt heavier than usual that night. I thought of the promises we made, the dreams we shared, the future we planned. Was all of that a lie now? I didn't know. But one thing I did know. That message was not just a message. It was a sign, a turning point, a moment that comes silently but changes everything after it. I looked at my husband, and for the first time in years, I felt like I didn't recognize him. Was he the same man I married? Was Ria still the same friend I loved like a sister? Or had both of them slowly slipped away without telling me? A soft pain rose in my chest. Not sharp, not sudden, just a quiet, steady ache, the kind that spreads slowly until you can feel it in your bones. And then, somewhere deep inside me, a small voice whispered, "What you do next will decide the rest of your life." I didn't know what my next step would be. I didn't know what truth I would find. I didn't know how much more my heart would have to endure. But I knew this. Whatever happened from this moment, I would face it. With pain, yes. With tears, yes. With disbelief, yes. But also with quiet strength. Because sometimes life does not break you to destroy you. Sometimes it breaks you to wake you. And that night, I finally woke up. The next morning, sunlight filled our bedroom softly. It touched the curtains, spilled onto the floor, and rested gently on the blanket near my feet. It should have felt warm, comforting, peaceful, but my heart still carried the heaviness from last night. I lay there quietly for a few minutes, staring at the ceiling. My husband, Arav, was still asleep beside me. His breathing was slow and steady. He looked calm, like someone who had nothing to hide, nothing to sear. And maybe that was the part that hurt the most. I wondered how long he had been carrying these secrets, how long he had been receiving messages from Ria, how long I had been living beside him, unaware of a small, hidden world growing between them. I sat up, hugged my knees, and tried to steady my breath. A part of me wanted to wake him up and ask everything right then.
A part of me wanted to scream, cry, shake him, force the truth out. But another part of me, a quieter, stronger part, said something else. Not yet. First, understand. First, breathe. So, instead, I got up slowly, moved to the kitchen, and started making tea.
The sound of boiling water was strangely comforting. The light clinking of cups felt like a small reminder that life was still moving, even when my heart wasn't. After a few minutes, I heard his footsteps. Arav walked into the kitchen, yawning lightly. "Morning," he said, his voice half sleepy. I turned to him with a small, practiced smile. "Good morning." He didn't notice anything odd. He didn't notice the slight tremble I hid in my hands, or the tiredness in my eyes. He sat down at the dining table and asked, "Are you going to the office today?" "Yes," I said softly. "There's some work left." "Okay," he replied, scrolling his phone. A tiny part of me waited to see if Ria would message again, if another notification would pop up, but his screen stayed still. I didn't know whether that brought relief or more fear. We sat in silence for a few seconds, and the silence felt heavy, like a pause just before a storm. Then he looked up and asked casually, "Is something wrong?" I paused. For a moment, I thought of telling him, but I simply shook my head. "No, just a little tired." He nodded, trusted my words, and continued drinking his tea. I watched him, the man I married in my late 20s, the man who once held my hand so tightly during our wedding that I thought they would melt into his, the man who used to write me small, sweet notes when we first moved in together. Where did that version of him go? And when did this quieter, distant version take his place? I remembered the early days of our marriage. We lived in a small rented apartment. The walls were thin, the kitchen was tiny, and the bedroom barely fit our bed. But we were happy. We cooked together. We laughed about silly things. We walked to the nearby tea stall every evening and shared a single cup because we were saving money. Those memories were soft, warm, filled with innocence. But with time, life became busier. I started working longer hours. He got promoted and had more responsibilities. We stopped going for evening walks. We stopped making time for each other. It wasn't anyone's fault, exactly. Life just pulled us in different directions, and we didn't notice the distance growing until it became too wide to ignore. Maybe this distance was the space where Ria had stepped in. Ria had always been close to me. She was the type of friend who could walk into my home without knocking. She knew where I kept our extra blankets, our spare keys, even which mug I preferred in the morning. She was almost like family. But now, after reading her message, I wasn't sure who she was anymore. As I finished breakfast, I remembered how we first met.
It was at a workshop I attended years ago. She sat beside me, complaining softly about the cold air conditioning. We laughed, shared snacks, exchanged phone numbers, and just like that, a friendship formed. She was fun, lively, and warm, the kind of person who made every room feel brighter. She met Arav 3 months later, and she liked him instantly. Not in the wrong way then, but simply as my partner. She would tease me, saying, "You two look so sweet together." And I believed her. Every word. Now I wondered, were there signs I missed? Moments I brushed aside? Conversations I didn't pay attention to? I tried to remember. There were small things, little things. The way she sometimes hugged him a bit too long. The way she laughed a little too hard at his simple jokes. The way her eyes lingered when she thought I wasn't looking. I had trusted her so much that I never questioned anything. But trust can sometimes blind us more than love can. I left for the office around 9:30. The cab ride felt longer than usual. The city was busy, but my mind was stuck in one place. When I reached work, people were chatting, typing, laughing, moving around as if nothing had changed in the world. But everything had changed in mine. My friend Shalini from the office noticed I was quieter than usual. She asked, "Are you okay? You look a little pale." "I'm fine," I said, smiling softly. But I wasn't. My thoughts kept going back to that message, over and over. All day, I tried to distract myself with work. Emails, reports, meetings. Nothing helped. Every time my phone buzzed, I felt a small panic in my chest. At lunchtime, I stepped out to sit alone in the small office garden. The sunlight was warm, the wind was gentle, but I felt cold. I thought about something my mother used to say when I was younger. When something hurts your heart, don't run from the pain. Sit with it. Understand it. It will teach you something. So I sat there, quietly, trying to understand. Was this my failure as a wife? Had I been too busy, too distracted, too trusting? Or was this simply life reminding me that not everyone you love will love you honestly? When I came back home in the evening, Araf was already there. The TV was on, dinner was half made, and the house smelled like cardamom. He smiled when he saw me. "How was your day?" I replied calmly. "Busy?" He came closer, placed his hand on my shoulder gently, and said, "You look tired. If you want, I'll finish the cooking." This soft kindness, this simple gesture confused me even more. If the message meant something more, if something was happening between him and Rhea, why was he acting so normal, so caring? Was it guilt? Or was it innocence? I couldn't tell.
We finished dinner quietly. Every now and then, I caught him looking at his phone, and every time he did, a small fear tightened inside me. Would she message again? What would he do if she did? Would he hide it? Or would he show me? But nothing came, at least not while I was watching. Later that night, I stood on our balcony and looked at the quiet street below. The air was cool, the moon was bright, and everything looked so peaceful. But my heart still felt heavy. I whispered softly, "What am I supposed to do now?" I didn't want to break my marriage. I didn't want to lose my friend. I didn't want my life to fall apart. I just wanted the truth. But truth is not something that arrives politely. It arrives like a guest you didn't invite, suddenly, without warning, changing everything in your home. As I stood there, Arav stepped beside me. He placed a hand on the railing and looked at the sky with me. "You're very quiet today," he said. I nodded. "Just tired." He hesitated for a moment, then asked softly, "Did something happen?" And in that moment, I wanted to tell him everything, but something held me back. Not fear, not anger, just uncertainty. I needed more time. I needed to understand before I spoke. So I simply said, "No, nothing happened." He accepted it. He didn't push. He never pushed. But I pushed myself instead, deeper into confusion. That night, lying beside him, I stared at the ceiling again, just like in the morning. But this time, there was a quiet thought forming in my mind. Something small, something fragile, something that would change the next chapter of my life. I need to find the truth, even if it hurts me, because pain without understanding is torture. But pain with understanding becomes clarity. And I needed clarity more than anything now.
The next few days passed in a strange silence.
Not the loud, painful kind of silence, but the quiet, slow kind that settles itself inside the walls of a home. Nothing dramatic happened. No fights, no arguments, no unusual messages popping up in front of me. But something had changed. Something deep. Something subtle. Something only a wife can feel. Arif acted normal. Painfully normal. Too normal. He woke up on time. He got ready for work. He asked me what I wanted for breakfast. He reminded me to take my vitamins because I often forgot. If someone walked into our home, they would think everything was perfect, peaceful even. But peace can sometimes be a mask. And I could feel the mask slipping at the edges. One night, we were having dinner when my mother-in-law, Meera, called. She lived in the same city, but she traveled often, and yesterday she had just returned from her sister's place. Arif put the call on speaker. "Beta, how are you?" she asked warmly. Her voice always carried softness. She had never been unkind to me. "We're good, Ma," Arif replied. She continued chatting, asking about his work, my office, small daily things. But suddenly she paused and asked, "You both sound a little quiet. Is everything okay?" My hand froze for a moment. It was surprising how mothers could sense things without seeing anything. Arif glanced at me and said quickly, "Everything is fine, Ma. Just tired." She didn't question further, but her tone softened a little. Take care of each other. Those words stayed with me long after the call ended. Take care of each other. But how do you take care of something when you're not sure it still exists? Later that night, I went to the kitchen to put away the dishes. Ara was on the sofa scrolling his phone. I could see the glow from the screen on his face. My heart tightened. I wanted to know who he was texting. I wanted to walk over and sit beside him. But I didn't move. Instead, I listened quietly. Every now and then, I heard a soft tap. Fingers typing. Then silence. Then another tap. I couldn't see the screen, but those taps felt louder than footsteps in an empty hall. I finally gathered courage and walked slowly toward the living room. When he noticed me, he locked his phone almost immediately. A small action, a small click, but it hit me like a wave. He never used to hide his phone like that. Never.
I pretended not to notice and sat down beside him. His body stiffened. Just for a second. Barely noticeable. But I felt it. I always felt these small changes. He cleared his throat and asked, "You're done with the kitchen?" "Yes." He nodded and looked back at the TV, switching channels randomly, not watching anything, not focusing on anything, just avoiding something or someone. I wondered if he was waiting for a message, a reply, a signal from her. The thought left a sharp ache in my chest. I looked at him quietly and said, "Arif, are you okay?" He turned to me, surprised. "Of course. Why do you ask? You seem different lately." He hesitated only for a second, but that second was enough. "I'm fine," he said with a gentle smile, the kind that didn't reach his eyes. "Everything is fine." A lie. Soft, polite, but still a lie. That night, after he fell asleep, I stayed awake for hours. My mind kept running in circles. If he was texting Ria, why wasn't she messaging when I was around? Were they communicating somewhere else? Was she being careful because she knew I had seen something? Or did we meet somewhere without my knowledge? The questions formed slowly like clouds before rain. The next morning, something unexpected happened. My phone buzzed. A message from Ria. My heart jumped. She rarely messaged me these days. In fact, she hadn't messaged at all after that night. Her message said, "Hey, I haven't seen you in a while. Let's meet. Coffee maybe." I stared at the words for a long moment. My hands felt cold. Did she know something? Was she pretending? Or was she trying to check if I had seen her message to Arif? Part of me wanted to ignore her. Part of me wanted to scream at her. But I took a slow breath and typed, Sure. Tomorrow? She replied quickly, Perfect. Tomorrow. I had one night to prepare myself to face the woman I once trusted with my whole heart. During the day, I felt restless. At work, I kept glancing at my phone, waiting. Not for Ria, but for something else. Arav. A message, a call, a small clue. Anything. But he remained normal. He messaged me at lunch, Did you eat? I stared at his text for a long time. There was kindness, but it felt different now. Unsteady, fragile, like a vase someone had dropped and put back together. I replied, Yes, you? He sent a small thumbs-up emoji. A normal message from a normal husband, but nothing felt normal. When I reached home that evening, I found Arav's younger sister, Anaya, sitting in the living room. She visited occasionally, but today she looked at me with a strange softness.
Bhabhi, you okay? She asked gently. Yeah, of course. I smiled. Why? You look a bit lost. She hesitated. Bhai also looks tired these days. I forced a small laugh. Work stress, maybe. She didn't look convinced, but she dropped the topic. Family often sees things even when you try to hide them. After she left, I sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the weight of everything. Tomorrow I had to see Rhea. Tomorrow I had to look into her eyes. Tomorrow I might hear the truth I wasn't ready for. I didn't want to lose my friend. I didn't want to lose my marriage, but reality doesn't always give you options. Sometimes it pushes you into the fire to see if you can walk through it. I took a deep breath. Tomorrow would bring answers, whether I was ready or not. The next morning felt heavier than usual. I woke up before my alarm, long before the sunlight touched our curtains. Sleep had come in fragments, light, scattered pieces that never truly rested me. My mind kept replaying one thought. Today, I will face her. I moved quietly out of bed, careful not to wake Arav. He looked peaceful again, as if mornings were kinder to him than nights. But my heart felt restless. I stood in front of the mirror, tying my hair slowly. I looked like myself, yet not like myself. There was something different in my eyes. A quiet fear, maybe, or a hidden strength I hadn't noticed before. Downstairs, while making tea, Arav walked into the kitchen. You're up early, he said softly. Couldn't sleep, I replied. He waited for a moment, maybe expecting me to say more. But when I didn't, he moved closer and placed a hand lightly on my back. You sure everything is okay? I looked at him, wondering how much truth he deserved. Not all truths are meant to be spoken at once. Some truths need time to rise, just like dew. I nodded gently. Yes, just tired. He gave a small smile and picked up his cup. Before leaving for work, he said, We should go out somewhere this weekend. Dinner, maybe. The suggestion surprised me. It felt sudden, unexpected, almost like he was trying to fix something he couldn't name. I just nodded. After he left, I sat on the sofa with my tea. My hands were warm against the cup, but my heart felt cold.
At around 4 p.m., I left the office early. My meeting with Ria was at a small cafe near her workplace. I chose a window seat where the light was soft and the view of the street kept my mind distracted. Ria arrived 10 minutes late. I saw her walking toward the cafe from afar. Her steps were fast, almost too fast, as if she was nervous. She entered, spotted me, and her face lit up with a smile I had seen 1,000 times before. Hey, she said, sitting across from me. Her voice sounded normal, too normal. We ordered coffee. For a few minutes, she talked about her work, her parents, a recent office event. I listened quietly. Then, the silence between us grew heavy, thick, uncomfortable. She finally asked, You've been distant. Are you sure everything is okay? I looked at her properly for the first time. Her eyes were warm, but there was something behind them, something unreadable. I took a breath and asked, "Ria, is everything okay between you and Arav?" She blinked. Once. Just once. A tiny reaction. So small that someone else might have missed it. But I didn't. She leaned back and laughed lightly. "What? Why? Did he say something?" That laugh? It was wrong. Forced. Slightly shaky at the end. My voice was calm, steady, but inside, I was trembling. "No, I'm just asking." She waved her hand and said, "We're fine. Why would anything be wrong?" Her eyes avoided mine. Only for a second, but enough. I wanted to believe her. Truly, I wanted her to say something, anything, that would remove the heaviness from my chest. But lies have a smell. A faint, bitter smell that only a wounded heart can recognize. "Ria," I whispered softly, "are you sure?" She looked at me again, this time holding my gaze for longer. Then she smiled gently and touched my hand. "I would never do anything to hurt you." Her words floated in the air between us, warm but cold underneath. I felt a strange ache rising inside me, because she did not deny knowing him. She did not ask what made me ask the question. She did not react like a friend who was shocked or offended. She only tried to reassure me. Reassurance without confusion is confession without words. I nodded slowly, pretending to accept her answer. We talked a little more about surface things, small things, but the warmth between us was gone. Every word felt heavy, like walking through thick fog. When we stood up to leave, she hugged me. Her arms wrapped around me tightly. But this time, I felt nothing in the hug. No comfort, no friendship, just emptiness. On my way home, I kept replaying the meeting in my mind. Her eyes, her reactions, her forced laugh. She was hiding something. I wasn't wrong. But I still didn't know what Arav felt, what he wanted, what was truly happening. When I reached home, Arav was already there, cooking dinner. "You're early," he said with a surprised smile. "How was your day?" I hesitated, then said, "I met Ria today." His hand paused in the middle of stirring the curry, just for half a second. "So, how was she?" he asked casually. "Fine," I replied. "And you?" He looked at me. His eyes held something. Guilt, fear, or maybe an answer he wasn't ready to give? "I'm okay," he said quietly. For the rest of the evening, the house felt filled with invisible threads of tension. Every word felt measured. Every pause felt meaningful. Later, as we lay in bed, he whispered, "You know you can talk to me, right?" I closed my eyes and said softly, "I know."
But knowing and believing are not the same. Just before sleep wrapped around me, one thought remained. Something is happening, and all three of us are pretending not to see it. The conflict was no longer silent, it was growing, between me and him, between me and her, and inside my own heart. And something told me the next few days would reveal what none of us were ready to face. The next morning, I woke up with a strange heaviness in my chest. Not pain exactly, but something close to it. A quiet pressure that reminded me that something inside my life had shifted, even if I didn't fully understand how much yet. Arav was already awake. He stood near the wardrobe, buttoning his shirt. When he saw me sit up, he smiled softly. "You slept well?" he asked. I nodded, though the truth was the opposite. He paused, watching me for a moment. His eyes seemed thoughtful, searching. For a second, I wondered if he could feel the distance between us, too. If he sensed the storm building quietly around us. Before leaving for work, he said gently, "Tonight, let's have dinner together. Just us, okay?" I forced a smile. "Okay." But inside,
I felt unsure. Was he trying to fix something? Or was he trying to cover something? After he left, the house felt unusually quiet. I cleaned the living room, folded laundry, even rearranged a drawer that didn't need rearranging. It was strange how people try to organize the outside when their inside feels messy. Around noon, my mother-in-law called again. "Beta, I feel like you sound tired these days," she said. Her voice always held warmth. And for a moment, I wished I could just tell her everything. Not for advice, but for comfort. But I couldn't. Instead, I said softly, "I'm okay, Ma, just work stress." She paused, as if thinking of whether to believe me. Then she said, "I'm coming to visit this weekend. I miss you both." My heart tightened. Arv wanted a couple's dinner this weekend. Ma wanted to visit. Rio was acting strange. Everything was happening at the same time. Maybe life arranges moments like this to force truth into the open. After I hung up, I sat on the edge of the sofa and let my thoughts settle. That's when my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. My breath caught for a moment. With shaking fingers, I opened it. "We need to talk. It's important." I frowned. There was no name, no introduction, nothing. Before I could reply, another message came. "It's about Ria." My heart skipped. Who was this? Why would they message me? What did they know? I typed slowly, "Who is this?" No reply. I waited. A minute? 2? 5? Still nothing. The silence after that message was louder than the message itself. I felt a slow fear crawling up my spine. Not the dramatic kind, but the quiet, uneasy kind that settles in your stomach.
I didn't tell Arav. Not yet. Not until I understood more. Around evening, he came home earlier than usual. He placed a hand on my shoulder and smiled. "You're ready to go?" I nodded, though my mind kept drifting back to the unknown message. At the restaurant, the atmosphere was warm and soft. Yellow lights hung from the ceiling. Couples sat around us, laughing quietly, talking gently. But between us, silence sat like an invisible guest. The waiter brought our food. Arav looked at me and said, "You're very quiet today." "I'm all right," I murmured. He sighed. "You say that often these days." I looked at him carefully. His face showed concern, but behind it, something flickered, something unspoken. He reached for my hand across the table and asked softly, "Are we okay?" The question hit me like a small wave. Not painful, but surprising. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't form. How could I tell him about the message from Ria, or the meeting that felt like walking through fog, or the unknown number that hinted at something darker? "I don't know," I whispered honestly. His hand tightened a little around mine. He asked, "What do you think is wrong?" For a moment, I considered telling him everything. The message I saw that night, the doubt that grew since then, the fear that kept me awake. But something held me back, not because I didn't want to know the truth, but because the truth felt incomplete, half-formed, still hiding its full shape. So instead, I asked quietly, "Have you spoken to Ria lately?" He froze, only for a heartbeat, but I saw it. His fingers went still, his breath caught slightly, his eyes widened and then softened quickly, as if trying to hide something. He said carefully, "Sometimes she checks in. You know how she is." I nodded. Yes, I knew exactly how she was. Too friendly, too warm, too close. But I didn't say that. Dinner continued in silence. On our way home, the streets felt colder, even though the weather hadn't changed. A stray dog crossed the road slowly. The wind carried a soft chill. Inside the car, Ara finally spoke again. "I don't want us to drift apart."
His voice was low, sincere, worried. I looked at him. He wasn't a bad man. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't heartless. But sometimes mistakes don't need bad people. They only need weak moments. I whispered, I don't want that either. When we reached home, I said I needed fresh air and went to the balcony. The city lights blinked in the distance, gentle and far. I held onto the railing and breathed deeply. My phone buzzed again. My pulse quickened. It was the same unknown number. This time, the message was longer. You don't know the full story. Meet me tomorrow afternoon near the old bookshop on MG Road. Come alone.
My hands trembled. The old bookshop? I hadn't been there in years. My mind raced. Who was this? Someone connected to Ria? Someone connected to Arav? Someone who knew something I didn't. I stared at the message for a long time until the screen dimmed. Behind me, Arav called softly, "Everything okay?" I quickly locked my phone. "Yes," I lied, "just thinking." But inside, everything was changing. The conflict was no longer hiding. It was stepping out into the open, one message at a time. And tomorrow, I would walk toward the truth, even if the truth walked toward me with trembling hands. The next day felt unusually heavy, as if the air itself carried something unsaid. I woke before Arav, quietly slipping out of bed and standing by the window. The morning light crept in slowly, touching the curtains, touching the floor, touching my bare feet. But it didn't touch the part of me that felt cold. I kept thinking about the message. Meet me near the old bookshop on MG Road. Come alone. There was something haunting about those words. Direct, urgent, almost desperate. Arav stirred behind me. He sat up, rubbing his eyes, and for a moment, he looked so innocent, so familiar. The same man I fell in love with years ago. "Why are you up so early?" he asked, his voice still soft with sleep. I turned slowly. I just woke up. Couldn't sleep. He studied my face with concern. "Is everything okay? You've been different." I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I walked toward the bed and sat beside him. There was a part of me that wanted to reach out, to ask him directly, to tell him everything, to open the knot in my chest. But another part held back, because the truth wasn't complete yet. And incomplete truths often become misunderstandings. So I simply said, "I'm fine, really." He didn't believe me. I could see it. But he didn't push. Arav rarely pushed. He dressed for work slowly, as if waiting for me to speak, as if hoping I would. But I stayed silent. When he finally left, he paused at the door and said softly, "I'll call you later." The moment the door shut behind him, the house felt emptier than usual, quiet in a way that made my thoughts louder. I kept checking the clock all morning. 9:10, 9:30, 10:15. Every minute felt long, like the day was stretching itself towards something inevitable. At noon, I finally got ready and left home.
On the way to MG Road, the city looked almost unfamiliar. Cars moved normally, people walked normally, shops opened normally. But inside me, everything felt slightly tilted. When I reached the old bookshop, I paused. The place hadn't changed much. The faded blue signboard, the dusty windows, the small wooden bench outside. I used to come here as a teenager, and I remembered flipping through old novels, sitting on the steps, dreaming of a future that now felt so complicated. I waited. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. 15. A soft breeze passed, carrying the smell of old paper and distant rain. Then I saw someone approaching. A woman, thin, nervous, wearing a pale yellow kurta and carrying a small brown bag.
At first, I didn't recognize her, but when she came closer, my breath caught. Priya? I whispered. She nodded slowly. Priya had once been part of our college group. Quiet, gentle, almost invisible. We lost touch after graduation. I never expected to see her again, certainly not like this. She sat on the bench beside me, her hands trembling slightly. "I'm sorry for messaging you so suddenly," she began, her voice low, "but I didn't know who else to tell or how else to warn you." "Warn me," I repeated, my heart tightening. She swallowed hard, eyes darting around as if afraid someone was listening. "It's about Ria," she said. My chest tightened. "Priya, what is going on? Why did you contact me? How do you even know?" She cut me off gently. "Because I've seen things, and I know things, and I can't stay quiet anymore." Her words were shaking, but they carried truth, a fearful truth. "What things?" I whispered. Priya took a slow breath, gathering courage. "You know, Ria works in event consulting, right?" I nodded. "She worked on a project with a firm last year, and my cousin works at that same firm. That's how I found out." She paused, looking at me carefully. "Found out what?" I asked, her voice lowered to a whisper. "She has been telling people for months that she and Aarav are close, more than close." My stomach dropped. Air suddenly felt thin. "She said that?" I whispered. Priya nodded slowly. "She shows people messages, screenshots, conversations. Some are real, some look edited, some look strange." My throat felt dry. "What kind of messages?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Priya hesitated. "I've seen one. Only one, and that was enough." She looked down at her hands. "It was a message where Aarav wrote something like, 'I wish we had more time alone.' But the timestamp looked wrong, like it was altered." My heart thundered painfully. "And you're sure?" I asked quietly. Priya nodded slowly. "I didn't want to believe it, so I went to my cousin and asked him quietly if everything was okay at work. He told me that Ria often talks about Aarav in a way that doesn't sound normal." The wind picked up, rustling old posters on the wall nearby. I whispered, "Why are you telling me all this now?" Priya looked up, eyes heavy with concern. "Because yesterday I overheard something that made me realize you needed to know." My pulse raced. "What did you hear?" Priya gripped her bag tightly. "My cousin told someone that Ria's planning something. Something messy. Something involving your marriage." I felt cold. A deeper cold than fear. A cold that came from betrayal and confusion and disbelief. "What exactly is she planning?" I asked. Priya looked helpless. "I don't know, but it sounded like she's trying to create a situation, a misunderstanding, something that will hurt you." I closed my eyes for a moment, steadying my breath. This wasn't just about a message anymore. It wasn't just about doubt. This was something bigger, something designed, something planned. When I opened my eyes, Priya gently touched my shoulder. "I didn't come here to scare you. I came here because you deserve to know what's happening around you." I nodded slowly. Priya stood up. "One more thing," she said softly. I looked up. "It's someone you trust." My heart pounded. "Who?" I whispered. Priya took a shaky breath. "I'm not completely sure yet, but I have a name." The world seemed to pause. Every sound around us faded. Every thought stopped. "Tell me," I whispered. Priya looked straight into my eyes. "It's someone you trust." She opened her mouth to speak the name, and that's exactly when everything changed.
Just as Priya opened her mouth to speak, a sharp sound cut through the air, a phone ringing. Not mine. Hers. She flinched, startled, as if the sound itself carried danger.
She looked at the screen, and her face drained of color. I watched her closely. "Who is it?" I asked softly. Priya swallowed hard. It's my cousin." Her hands trembled slightly. She didn't answer the call. She silenced it. But the moment she did, another message popped up on her screen. I saw the preview before she locked the phone. "Where are you? Don't meet anyone. It's not safe." Priya's breathing quickened. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice low, steady. "I think he suspects I told you. He knows Ria is keeping secrets. He's scared to be involved." A thick wave of unease passed through me. Priya looked around nervously, scanning the people walking by, the scooters passing, the quiet bookstore behind us. It felt like we were sitting inside a moment that wasn't meant to be witnessed, as if the world around us was holding its breath too. I leaned in gently. "Priya, the name you were about to tell me. Who is it?" She opened her mouth, closed it, and then whispered, "It's someone connected to your home." My heartbeat picked up. "Connected how?" I asked. "Someone from my building? A neighbor? A family member?" Priya looked tormented by the weight of what she knew. "I need to be sure before I accuse anyone," she said quietly. "But I heard something that made me suspect a person. Someone who visits your place often." A slow chill climbed up my spine. "Priya," I whispered, "my home is not a busy place. Hardly anyone comes. Who would—" She cut me off gently. "I know. That's what makes it strange, because the person I'm thinking of shouldn't be involved at all." She glanced over her shoulder again, as if the person might appear out of thin air. Then she took a deep breath. "Listen, I will confirm it. I will get proof. But before I do, you need to be very careful around Ria." My mouth felt dry. "What is she trying to do, Priya?" Priya looked at me with soft, frightened eyes. "She's trying to take something from you. Something precious. Something she feels she deserves more than you." My stomach twisted painfully. "Are you saying she's trying to take Arav?" I whispered. Priya didn't answer directly. Instead, she said, "She's trying to create a situation where it looks like Arav chose her." The words sunk slowly, heavily. "But why?" I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. Priya's voice softened. "Some people fall in love with something that isn't theirs, and then they convince themselves it should be." A long silence fell between us. The air felt thicker, heavier. Finally, Priya stood up, her decision made. "I need to go," she said. "I'll message you once I find more, but don't confront anyone yet, not until you know the whole truth." I nodded slowly. She took a few steps away, then turned back and said one final thing, a sentence that stayed with me long after she left. "Trust your heart, but verify everything else." And with that, she disappeared into the crowd.
I stood there for a while, letting the noise of the street wrap around me. My mind kept replaying her words. Someone close to you, someone connected to your home, someone helping her. I tried to think of who it could be, but nothing made sense. The auto rickshaw driver who delivered vegetables sometimes? The guard who opened the gate? My neighbor who borrowed sugar last week? No, none of them fit the feeling behind Priya's words. Someone who visits my place often. Someone who shouldn't be involved. Someone who knows my routines. My heart thumped painfully. A slow dread crept through me. I thought of Ria.
her behavior recently, her closeness, her sudden possessiveness. Could she really manipulate someone around me? But why involve a third person? What advantage did it give her? My mind spiraled with questions. That evening, when I returned home, Arav wasn't back yet. The house looked ordinary, calm. The cushions where I left them, the curtains still, the faint smell of dinner ingredients waiting in the kitchen. But now everything felt different. Shadows seemed longer. Silence seemed heavier. I took out my phone and reopened the messages from the unknown number, the one that had asked me to come alone. Was it Priya all along? No, she didn't have my number. Someone must have given it to her or told her to contact me. But who? As I stood there thinking, another thought slowly crept up, one I had been avoiding. What if the person helping Ria wasn't someone outside the family? What if it was someone inside? Someone with access, someone with trust, someone with a reason, whatever that reason was. But who? I sat on the couch thinking, until I heard the front door open. Arav walked in, tired but smiling. "Hey," he said softly. "How was your day?" "Fine," I replied automatically. He sensed something. He always did. "You sure?" he asked gently. I looked at him for a long moment. Really looked. This man, my husband, my partner, the persons whose heartbeat I once matched without thinking, could he really be part of this? Willingly or unknowingly? Or was he just another piece in someone else's plan? I couldn't tell. Not yet. Arav walked closer, placing a hand on my shoulder. He asked, "Let's sit for a bit." I nodded, though my mind was miles away. We sat together, but every time he spoke, my thoughts drifted back to Priya's words. Someone close to you. Someone connected to your home. Who? And then, just as I glanced toward the hallway, I heard a faint sound, a notification. Not from my phone, from Arab's. And something about the way he reached for it, quickly, almost reflexively, made a quiet alarm ring inside me. He looked at the screen for a moment, then locked it and slipped the phone into his pocket. I watched him carefully. He noticed. "What?" he asked softly. "Nothing," I replied. But inside, the turning point had already begun. Because for the first time, I didn't just feel doubt. I felt the beginning of truth. A truth that was coming closer, step by step, message by message, breath by breath. And soon, it would reveal the person helping Ria. The person inside my world. The person I never expected. I stood there for a while, letting the noise of the street wrap around me. My mind kept replaying her words. Someone close to you, someone connected to your home, someone helping her. I tried to think of who it could be, but nothing made sense. The auto rickshaw driver who delivered vegetables sometimes, the guard who opened the gate, my neighbor who borrowed sugar last week. No, none of them fit the feeling behind Priya's words. Someone who visits my place often. Someone who shouldn't be involved. Someone who knows my routines. My heart thumped painfully. A slow dread crept through me. I thought of Ria, her behavior recently, her closeness, her sudden possessiveness. Could she really manipulate someone around me? But why involve a third person? What advantage did it give her? My mind spiraled with questions.
That evening, when I returned home, Arav wasn't back yet. The house looked ordinary, calm. The cushions where I left them, the curtains still, the faint smell of dinner ingredients waiting in the kitchen. But now everything felt different. Shadows seemed longer. Silence seemed heavier. I took out my phone and reopened the messages from the unknown number, the one that had asked me to come alone. Was it Priya all along? No, she didn't have my number. Someone must have given it to her or told her to contact me. But who? As I stood there thinking, another thought slowly crept up, one I had been avoiding. What if the person helping Ria wasn't someone outside the family? What if it was someone inside? Someone with access, someone with trust, someone with a reason, whatever that reason was. But who? I sat on the couch thinking, until I heard the front door open. Arav walked in, tired but smiling. "Hey," he said softly. "How was your day?" "Fine," I replied automatically. He sensed something. He always did. "You sure?" he asked gently. I looked at him for a long moment. Really looked. This man, my husband, my partner, the persons whose heartbeat I once matched without thinking, could he really be part of this? Willingly or unknowingly? Or was he just another piece in someone else's plan? I couldn't tell. Not yet. Arav walked closer, placing a hand on my shoulder. He asked, "Let's sit for a bit." I nodded, though my mind was miles away. We sat together, but every time he spoke, my thoughts drifted back to Priya's words. Someone close to you. Someone connected to your home. Who? And then, just as I glanced toward the hallway, I heard a faint sound, a notification. Not from my phone, from Arab's. And something about the way he reached for it, quickly, almost reflexively, made a quiet alarm ring inside me. He looked at the screen for a moment, then locked it and slipped the phone into his pocket. I watched him carefully. He noticed. "What?" he asked softly. "Nothing," I replied. But inside, the turning point had already begun. Because for the first time, I didn't just feel doubt. I felt the beginning of truth. A truth that was coming closer, step by step, message by message, breath by breath. And soon, it would reveal the person helping Ria. The person inside my world. The person I never expected.
That night, after Ara fell asleep, I lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling. The room was dark, except for a faint strip of light coming in from the street lamp outside. Everything looked calm, peaceful, ordinary. But nothing inside me felt ordinary anymore. Priya's warning echoed in my mind. Someone close to you, someone connected to your home. I tried to connect the pieces, but they didn't fit yet. They felt like fragments of a puzzle where the final picture was still hidden. Arav's breathing became slow and steady. Mine did not. I turned slightly and looked at him. His face looked relaxed, almost childlike. A part of me wanted to believe he was innocent, that this entire storm was something happening around us, not because of us. But another part, the part shaped by the messages, the strange coincidences, the meeting with Priya, whispered to me that innocence doesn't always mean helplessness. Sometimes people get pulled into something without realizing how deep it goes. I watched him for a long time before finally closing my eyes. By morning, the house felt unusually quiet. I walked into the kitchen to start breakfast, but halfway through cutting vegetables, a strange intuition made me stop. It was subtle, like the feeling of being watched,
or the sense that something had been moved without your permission. I looked around the kitchen slowly. Everything seemed normal, perfectly normal, but the feeling remained. I walked toward the living room, scanning the shelves, the table, the cushions. And then I saw it, a small rectangular object tucked behind the indoor plant near the bookshelf. I froze. My pulse quickened as I reached for it. It was a recording device, small, black, almost invisible unless you looked closely. I held it in my palm, stunned. A voice recorder, in my home, watching me, listening to me. The room felt suddenly smaller. I sat down slowly, heart pounding. Who would put this here? Arav? Rhea? The mysterious helping person Priya mentioned, or someone else entirely? My hands trembled as I pressed the small button on the side, and the screen lit up. Last recording, 2:17 a.m. My breath caught. 2:17 a.m., just hours ago, when Arav and I were both sleeping. Or was one of us awake? Feeling a wave of nausea, I tapped play. At first, there was static, a faint hum, then footsteps, soft, slow, barefoot. They walked across the living room, paused near the bookshelf, and then a familiar sound, the small click of a device being adjusted. Someone was checking it, not placing it, checking it. My heart raced faster. Then a voice whispered, faint, low, almost too soft to hear, but I recognized the voice instantly. It was not Arav, and it was not Rhea. It was... My breath caught painfully. It was my sister-in-law, Mira, Arav's elder sister, the one who visited often, the one who was overly involved at times, the one who was distant lately, as if something weighed on her mind. Her voice whispered, "Everything is normal. She suspects nothing." I felt cold all over. Mira? Why Mira? What did she have to do with this? My hands shook as I played more of the recording. Footsteps again, a soft sigh, then another whisper. "I'll update Rhea later." Rhea, my friend, my sister-in-law, both connected, both involved. I pressed pause, unable to listen further. My entire world felt like it tilted, quietly, without warning, and the floor beneath me no longer felt solid. I sat there for a long time, staring at the recorder in my hand, and Mira,
My sister-in-law, who held my hand at my wedding, who cried tears of joy when Arav and I exchanged vows, who told me she considered me her real sister. Why was she helping Rhea? For what purpose? What could she possibly gain from hurting me? As I tried to steady my shaking breath, a memory surfaced. 3 months ago, a small argument between Mira and her husband, Varun, voices echoing from the guest room. I had only caught a sentence when I passed by. Everything changed after Arav married her. At the time, I brushed it off as normal sibling tension, but now it felt like a missing piece snapping painfully into place. Was Mira jealous? Did she feel replaced? Pushed aside? Did she think I took her brother away from her life? Or was it something deeper? Something Rhea used to pull Mira into her plan? I didn't know. Not yet. The front door opened suddenly. I startled, quickly hiding the recorder in a drawer. Arav walked in, surprised to see me standing still in the middle of the room. "Hey," he said softly. "I forgot my laptop. Did you have breakfast?" I forced my voice to stay calm. "Not yet." He walked past me toward the study. He didn't notice the tension in the air. Or maybe he did and pretended not to. As he fetched his laptop, I watched him closely. Every step, every movement, every expression. Did he know what Mira was doing? Was he part of this? Or was he also being misled by someone he trusted completely? When he returned, he looked at me again. "You sure you're okay?" he asked gently. I nodded. He hesitated, then walked closer and touched my cheek softly. For a moment, the warmth of his hand made me forget the cold fear inside me. But only for a moment. "I'll see you for lunch?" he asked. I nodded again. He gave me a small smile and left. The door closed behind him, and the silence that followed swallowed me whole. I walked back to the drawer and pulled out the recorder again. There was no denying it now. This wasn't about doubt. This wasn't about insecurity. This wasn't about imagination. Someone in my own family, someone inside my home was helping my best friend destroy my marriage. And now, I finally knew who the helper was. But what I didn't know, not yet, was why. Or what they planned next. And that answer?
Would change everything. The next morning arrived slowly, as if the sun itself hesitated to show me another day of truth. I sat on the balcony with a cup of tea, but the tea had already gone cold. My hands were wrapped around the cup anyway, not for warmth, but for steadiness. I kept thinking about the recording, the soft, familiar voice whispering in the dark, the quiet footsteps, the name she mentioned, Mira, my sister-in-law, family, someone who had shared festivals, meals, memories, someone who held my hand when I first entered this home after marriage. And yet, she had been helping Rhea. My heart felt heavier than fear itself. Fear confuses you, but betrayal breaks the ground beneath you. I sat there until the doorbell rang. A simple sound, a daily sound. But today, it felt like a question. When I opened the door, Mira stood there. Bright smile, warm eyes, a tiffin in her hand, like always. "Saw fresh vegetables on sale. I thought I'd cook you some sabzi." Her voice held no guilt, no hesitation, as if she truly believed everything was normal. But I was no longer the same. I stepped aside slowly. "Come in." She walked in, placing the tiffin on the dining table. Her movements were familiar, almost comforting, but my eyes saw everything differently now. "Where is Ardov?" "At work." She nodded, humming softly as she sat down. "I'll wait for him for a few minutes. I have to talk to him about the house papers." House papers. Really? Or was it another excuse to check the recorder? I walked to the drawer where I had hidden it. My fingers brushed the wooden handle, but I didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, I turned to her and said quietly, "Mira, can I ask you something?" She looked at me with the same warm expression she'd always worn. "Of course. What happened? You look tired." Her concern almost felt real. Almost. I sat across from her, folding my hands calmly. "Do you ever record things for safety? Like keeping voice notes or surveillance?" She froze, only for half a second. But I saw it. A small stiffness in her shoulders, a flicker in her eyes. She recovered quickly. "Recording? Why would I?" I nodded slowly. "Just asking." She smiled again, too quickly this time. "You've been stressed. Maybe you're imagining things." Imagining? That word again? People use it when they want you to doubt your own eyes. I leaned back in my chair and said very softly, "Mira, did you come here last night?" Her smile faltered. "No. Why?" "You're sure?" She blinked. "Yes." Slowly, I stood up, walked to the door, opened it, and placed the recorder on the table. Mira's face changed for the first time. Not fully, just a small crack. Like a mask slipping for half a second. She stared at the device. "What is this?" she asked, her voice slightly tighter. "You tell me."
I have never seen this before. You're lying. How dare you? I interrupted her gently. I heard the recording. Her breath stopped. In that moment, her carefully built expression shattered. Her face went pale. Her lips trembled. She looked down at the device like it was something alive and dangerous. I can explain. Please do, I said quietly. She didn't speak for a long moment. Her fingers trembled as she held the edge of the table. Finally, she said softly, "It's not what you think."
Tears pooled in her eyes, but they weren't the kind that fall from guilt. They were the kind that fall from fear. I sat down again, calm and steady. Then tell me, why did you record me? Why were you speaking to Rhea? Why did you help her? She covered her face with her hands. When she finally spoke, her voice broke. I didn't want to. I swear I didn't want to, but she threatened me. Threatened. The word hit me like a wave. I softened slightly. Threatened you with what? Mira's voice shook violently. She has messages, photos, things she can twist, things that can ruin my marriage, my family, my life. My breath caught. What things? Mira wiped her tears. Something stupid I did years ago. Something I told her in confidence. A mistake. She said if I didn't help her, she would send it to Varun. She sobbed quietly into her hands. She said I only had to update her about you. Just small things. Nothing harmful. But then she started asking for more. Things about Erev. Your marriage. Your routines. I closed my eyes. So this was the twist. This was the hidden truth. Not jealousy, not anger. Fear. Rhea had manipulated Mira, used her weakness, cornered her. But I still needed to know one more thing. And the plan, I asked softly. What was she planning? Mira swallowed hard, her voice trembling. She wanted to make it look like you were unstable, that you were imagining things, that you were too emotional. She wanted Arab to feel distant from you, confused, unsure. My heart felt heavy. And then Mira broke down completely. She wanted to be the one he confided in, the one he trusted, the one he turned to. Slowly, painfully, the truth unfolded inside me. Rhea never wanted my husband. She wanted my place, my life, my stability, my importance in the family. And Mira was her frightened pawn. I leaned back, letting the revelation wash over me. This wasn't a triangle of love. This wasn't an affair. This was manipulation, insecurity, control, a web spun by someone desperate and pulled tight around someone vulnerable. I looked at Mira gently. You should have told me. She shook her head helplessly. I was scared. I know. Because fear does that. It makes good people do weak things. I sat quietly for a moment, letting Mira's words settle inside me. The room felt still, as if even the walls were listening. Then, slowly, I reached for her hand. She looked at me with surprise, her eyes red and swollen. Mira, I said softly, fear can make anyone weak, but it doesn't make you a bad person. She shook her head, tears spilling again. I betrayed you. I betrayed Arav. I betrayed myself. No, I whispered. You made a mistake, a painful one, but you were pushed into a corner. Her shoulders trembled. I don't know how to make this right. You already have, I said gently. By telling me the truth,
She lowered her gaze, unable to speak. Her grip on my hand tightened, like she was holding on to something fragile but real. After a few minutes, I stood up and poured her a glass of water. She drank it slowly, as if grounding herself back into the moment. "We will handle this," I said quietly. "Together." Her eyes widened, hope flickering through the fear. You'll help me?" "Yes, because I realized something important. Rhea didn't just want to break my marriage. She wanted to break the women around her, break their confidence, break their relationships. But broken things can be repaired when people stand together." Mira exhaled shakily. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't know what this means." I did know, because forgiveness isn't softness, it's strength. And sometimes helping someone else heal repairs something inside you too. Just then, we heard the main door open. Arav stepped inside, removing his shoes. His eyes moved from me to Mira, her tear-stained face, her trembling hands. "What happened?" he asked softly. "Are you both okay?" I looked at him, really looked at him. This man, my husband, someone who had stood with me through storms, someone who held my silence without needing explanations. I realized I didn't need to test him anymore. I didn't need to doubt him. I didn't need to collect evidence. I needed honesty. I needed partnership. So I took a slow breath and said, "Arav, we need to talk. All three of us." He nodded immediately, worry in his eyes. We sat together at the table, the very spot where Mira had once placed her lies and where I now placed the truth. Mira, with trembling courage, told him everything. Every message, every fear, every manipulation, every threat. Arav listened silently, his jaw tightening, his breath deepening. When she finished, he didn't shout, he didn't blame. He just closed his eyes for a moment, then said in a steady voice, "This ends now." There was no anger, only clarity. He reached across the table and took my hand in his.
"We handle this together," he said. "I'm here. I was always here." His words were simple, but sometimes simple words carry the deepest comfort. For the first time in many days, my chest felt lighter. Not because the problem was solved, but because I wasn't carrying it alone anymore. I looked at Mira. Her shoulders had relaxed. She breathed easier. The fear that had chained her for so long finally began to loosen. And in that small moment, in that quiet kitchen, I realized something that felt almost like peace. Pain had opened the door. Discovery had shaken me. Growth had changed me. And forgiveness had given me freedom. The story wasn't over, but the darkness had finally begun to lift. For the first time in many weeks, I slept without waking up in the middle of the night. No jolting fear, no sudden memory of a whisper, no shadows moving behind my thoughts. Just a quiet kind of tiredness that felt peaceful. When I opened my eyes the next morning, I saw sunlight resting gently on the curtains. Arav was still asleep beside me, his breathing slow, deep, steady. I watched him for a moment, not with suspicion, not with fear, but with a strange mix of gratitude and softness. It's strange how a storm can strengthen the ground it tries to break. I walked to the kitchen, the floor cool under my feet. As I poured myself some tea, I felt the simple warmth of the cup spreading through my palms. Something so ordinary felt like a small blessing. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. A message from Mira. "Good morning. Thank you for yesterday. I feel lighter today."
I smiled gently. Sometimes healing begins quietly, not with big gestures, but with small breaths. I replied with a simple, one step at a time. As I set my phone down, I looked around the kitchen. This room had witnessed tears, fear, secrets, revelations, and now it was witnessing calm. I realized how deeply homes absorb emotions. They hold everything: the whispers, the anger, the fear, the love. And when peace returns, the walls feel it too. Slowly, I walked to the balcony. The morning air was cool, carrying the faint smell of wet soil. Birds were resting on the electricity wires, their wings still tucked from the night's chill. As I sat down, I allowed myself to breathe deeply. Life had not gone back to normal, but I had changed. I didn't want the old normal anyway. That old version of me, the one who trusted blindly, who dismissed her own doubts, who carried burdens silently, she deserved more than silence and fear. I had learned something painful but essential. Blind trust isn't love. Honest trust is. Arav joined me after a few minutes, rubbing his eyes sleepily. Did you sleep well? He asked, sitting beside me. Yes, I said softly. For the first time. He nodded, looking out over the balcony rail. He said, I've been thinking we should set some boundaries with everyone, including Ria, even with extended family.
I looked at him, surprised by his clarity. He continued, I don't want anyone using our kindness against us again. And I want you to feel safe. Always. There was a steadiness in his voice, not forceful, not controlling, just a quiet promise. I leaned my head on his shoulder. For a long moment, we didn't speak. Sometimes silence heals more than words ever can. Later that afternoon, I sat with Arav as he typed a message to Ria. A simple message. Not dramatic, not emotional, just clear. We know everything. Do not contact us or Mira again. We wish you well, but this chapter is closed. Ria replied almost instantly. Her tone shifted quickly, from surprise to excuses to anger to guilt and finally to silence. Arav blocked her number calmly. I watched him, feeling a soft wave of relief wash over me. Not because she was gone, but because we had acted together. For once, the weight wasn't mine alone. That evening, Mira came over. Her eyes were tired, but her face held a kind of fragile courage. She sat on her sofa and took a deep breath. I'm going to tell Varun everything, she said quietly. And I'm ready for whatever happens. I don't want to live with secrets anymore. I admired her then. Truly. Courage doesn't always look like loud fights or bold declarations. Sometimes it looks like a woman sitting with her fear and choosing truth anyway. Do you want me to be with you when you talk to him? I asked. She nodded. Yes, not to defend me, just to remind me that I'm not alone. And I understood. Because the worst part of betrayal is not the act itself, it's the loneliness it creates around you. We talked for an hour, gently, openly, honestly. It felt like two women sitting with their wounds, helping each other stitch them softly. When she left, she hugged me tightly. You didn't have to forgive me, she whispered. I know, I whispered back, but I'm glad I did. Forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It simply frees you from carrying it forever. That night, I sat at the edge of my bed, watching the city lights blink in the distance.
Everything felt strangely still. Not empty, not heavy, just still. I realized something then, something I had never said out loud before. What hurt me the most wasn't the message. It was the feeling that I was being replaced in my own life. But I wasn't replaced. I was simply shaken. And sometimes shaking reveals the cracks you never noticed. Cracks that need attention. Cracks that need healing. Cracks that need honesty. Harav walked in and sat beside me. "Thinking again?" he asked softly. "A little," I admitted, "but this time, the thoughts don't scare me." He smiled gently. "That's good," he said, taking my hand. I looked at him, really looked, at the man who had stood with me in quiet ways, in small gestures, in steady support, and I felt something shift inside me. Not excitement, not passion, something deeper. A second beginning, a quiet restart, a soft rebuilding. We didn't need grand romance. We needed presence, and we finally had that.
Before sleeping, I stood by the window and let the night breeze wash over my face. The city hummed softly. People moved. Lights flickered. Life carried on. And so would I. But differently. Quietly. More aware. More grounded. More honest with myself. As I closed the window, I whispered something into the dark. Not as a prayer, not as a wish, just as a truth I wanted to remember. Sometimes life breaks you to show you how deeply you can heal. If someone asked me today what I learned through all this, I would say it very simply. Trust carefully, observe gently, and speak your fears early. Silence protects others, but often hurts you. And sometimes the people you think will break you are actually the ones who will stand with you when you choose to rise. I didn't get revenge. I didn't create drama. I didn't shout or destroy anything. Instead, I chose something quieter, something stronger. Truth, understanding, boundaries, and a future not built on fear, but on clarity and care. And as I finally lay down to sleep that night, I felt a truth settle softly inside me. Healing is not forgetting. Healing is remembering without fear. And with that thought, I let myself drift into a peace I had long been searching for.